Welcome to Ginny's, where East meets West, and a taste of Eastern philosophy becomes a part of Western thinking. I'm your host, Ginny Gong. My first guest has roots from an island south of India called Sri Lanka. He is an active member of the Sri Lankan American Community and was the past president of the Sri Lankan Association of Washington, D.C. His professional career has been a testament to his belief in social justice and equity, from that of an enforcement officer and investigator with the Office of Human Rights to his current position managing workplace labor relations in the Office of Human Resources in Montgomery County Government. Over the span of more than 2 decades, he has spent much of his professional career navigating the gray areas of human interactions. Join me in welcoming Lasantha Dahanaike. Lasantha, welcome.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for having me here.
Well, all I can say is somebody has to do those jobs. It might as well be you, right? Now, but kidding aside, I've actually held some of these positions that you've had, and they're not easy because there's really no right or wrong. What, encouraged you to pursue a career in this field?
Well, these are not the chosen path. Believe it or not, I came into this country to become a pilot, and then things, other opportunities came. I had I was actually flying, in Alaska many years ago, and then we met with an accident, and that was changed my career. Went back to grad school, and that's where I ended up here.
Wow. So, any regrets that you're not a pilot?
No. I really enjoy my job here. It's been 15 years with the county, and I really like it.
Well, I work with you in the workplace, so I have to say you're very effective in what you do. So let's follow this career path of yours, because certainly it's taken years to get to where you are.
Correct.
How did you start in this particular field?
Well, like I said, when you first came to the country, as an international student, I went to flight school, and while I was flying, I was also doing. We had to do a course of studies, to keep the immigration status. So I was doing business studies, and once I finished it, I was flying, and then with the accident I talked about, then I changed my career, and that was back in '91.
I see. When
the things were pretty bad, there was a recession, no choice. Had to either go to law school or had to go to get an MBA, and at that time, if you can remember, back in the 90s, MBA was more valuable than a JD.
Okay.
So I ended up getting an MBA, got some experience in human resources.
But you were an enforcement officer, right?
Yeah, my first job, I got an internship with the EEOC when I was living in Minnesota. And once I got that internship, after that the career kind of came to be.
Right.
I got hired by the state of Minnesota as an enforcement officer, working in civil rights, investigation, discrimination complaints. And I worked there for 3 years. I lived in Minnesota for 12 years. It was time to leave the cold winters of Minnesota, and I moved to Washington.
But do you feel sometimes it's a thankless job?
Well, yeah, but I enjoy being with, talking to people and basically problem solving. That's what we do.
So when you were with the Office of Human Rights and you were an investigator, what type of cases might you investigate?
Well, it's all civil rights. Basically, any discrimination complaint based on employment, housing, public accommodation, based on a protected class, religion, national origin, sexual orientation. People would file a complaint. I was not hired because of my race.
Right.
And then we would do the investigation, make the finding, and find a.
But these protected classes, most of them are across the country, but in some states, some of them are not necessarily protected, right?
Correct. Yes. And when it comes to civil rights, you have the federal, the top end, then you have the state, then you have the county like we do, and then you have some cities have their own ordinances. So depending on where you are.
So here you're in Montgomery County, Maryland, and you're dealing in the workplace with labor relations.
Yes.
What are your responsibilities, and who are the stakeholders?
Well, I switched from being in human rights, I switched to human resources, came into the labor team here with the county. And what we do is we negotiate the contract. Montgomery County has 4 unions. We have a professional union, MacGeo. Then we have a police union. We have a fire. And actually, Montgomery County is the only entity in the whole country that has a union for volunteer firefighters. So we have 4 unions we deal with.
Incredible. And you're assigned by departments?
Yes, we are. Well, we first, in the negotiations team, we do the contract, the collective bargaining agreement. That's normally signed for 3 years. And then we follow that with each of us labor specialists get 4 or 5 departments we work with. And then we advise management on how to interpret the collective bargaining agreement, how to discipline the employee, how to deal with grievances. And ADR, we have a whole process.
So let's talk about grievances. In the workplace, what is grievable and what's not grievable?
Well,
they don't like me. Is that grievable?
Well, the union can grieve anything.
Yeah, right.
And they sometimes choose to do so. But what really is grievable is if there's a violation of the contract, the collective bargaining agreement. That is the main thing. The union feels that they can that there's been a violation by management, they will file the grievance. Then we have, that starts the process of trying to find out whether it really was or not.
So I give somebody an evaluation of, below successful. Is that grievable?
No.
Okay.
No, that is not grievable. That's one of those things in the contract that's saying that that is one of those things that are not grievable.
Okay. But people will still try.
Well, yes, they will go and complain to the union, and the union will, want you to, well, another reason why it was done, but they cannot file a grievance on that.
Well, in essence, when you and I have spoken about what management can do, in actuality, the union is really sort of the attorney, right, for providing counsel to the employees.
Well, they're representative. It's kind of strange because, they are employees, but the union represents them, and they're their members.
Right.
So in our team we have labor and employee relations. So when you're wearing the labor hat, when an employee comes to talk to us, we tell them, no, we really can't because the union is representing you, so you need to go to the union.
Right.
But on the other side, if they come to talk to us about an employee relations issue, we had to try to help them out.
Right. With the campaign, there's so many, there's all this discussion about unions and whether or not they're really needed. What's your opinion about the value of unions in the workplace, because you deal with them on a regular basis?
Well, I think there is some value to the unions. There's no doubt about it. It has been a part of the American history for a long time. But unfortunately, it becomes political. I think union sometimes is too political, and they get in the way of management doing the job, or we serve in the community. So that is a problem we deal with on a daily basis.
But I would think that if the employee, was working in an environment that respected the employee as somebody to be valued, then, is there really a need for union intervention?
Well, yes, management will think no, but then again, union, it's, they get the dues. It's
right. And there are people
it's
paid to do a job.
It's American business.
Well,
so,
does being an Asian American, in the field that you're in, working with employees, working with management on social justice and issues related to rights, does being an Asian American have any additional benefit? I mean, do you see your role?
In mediations, I do. I felt like I can, especially if, with African American community, I'm not white, I'm in between, and I feel the same with the other side. I've been able to help with the mediation stuff.
Yeah, because I found that when I had positions like yours, white community felt I was white because I could understand what they were thinking, but minorities saw me as a minority, like you were mentioning, right? And so I think maybe there's a little bit more of a trust.
Yes.
in,
I would say
in
so.
decisions that you might come up with?
Correct.
Ah, that does make sense, huh?
Yeah, it helps out.
Well, you know, very few people really know about Sri Lanka and where it is. They really never even think of Sri Lankans as being Asian Americans. So where is Sri Lanka? And what can you tell us about the country?
Well, it's an island. It's an island strategically located southeast of India.
Okay.
It was used, long history. The Aboriginal people of Sri Lanka were called Vedas.
Called what?
They were called Vedas.
Oh.
Yeah, its history can go back to 3,000 plus years. We had our own kingdoms for many years. We had a lot of Indian. It was part of the Silk Route.
Oh,
at
the
one
Silk
time.
Road.
And then it was because we have some very deep harbors. It was used in World War II.
Now, it used to be called another name,
It
right?
was called Ceylon. Most people
Ceylon.
would know it as Ceylon because famous for tea. It was known as Ceylon tea, and also known for the spices and especially cinnamon.
Well,
And-
you know, we are quickly running out of time, but you know, Sri Lankans come to this country with an advantage over other immigrants, right? What might that be?
Well, that is simply because we were under the British. We were under the British for a couple of hundred years, and that helped most people speak English. So coming to the United States with that advantage really helps in catapulting them with a career in the professional field more than others who had to start probably with blue collar jobs until they learn the language.
Well, you know, you have a very valuable role in county government, Lasantha. We wish you well. Thanks for all that you do. And we're going to be taking a break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with my next guest.
Every book is an adventure waiting to come to life. Visit new worlds. Encounter new friends. And discover the power of reading. Go to read.gov to read A Princess of Mars, the first novel to feature John Carter. A new world awaits. Read.
A boy born in Joplin, Missouri was fascinated by anything with wheels and a motor. The odds of him winning both the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400 in the same year, 1 in 195 million. The odds of the child being diagnosed with autism, 1 in 110. I'm Jamie McMurray, and my niece has autism.
Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
Welcome back to Ginny's, where East meets West. My next guest is Chief in the Division of Business Relations and Compliance in the Office of Procurement in Montgomery County Government and a graduate of the Council of Governments Public Management Program. She received her education from institutions of higher learning from China and the United States. Please welcome Grace Denno. Welcome, Grace.
Thank you, Ginny.
Well, you know, it's very interesting. You've only been in this country, about 15 years. You were trained in information technology, and now you are chief in a field that is pretty far away from technology in the arena of procurement and compliance. How did this come about?
Yes, actually, I started as an intern with the county's IT department. And then later, when I got my master's in IT, I got a permanent position with the DTS.
Right.
But then later, when I went to a different department in general services, this office had a vacancy in the manager's position. At that time, my director looked at me and said, "Are you interested?"
What a compliment, right?
I know. So I took a couple days and considered it, and like you said, it wasn't in my training. It was a little bit out of my comfort zone. But I came back to him and said, "Sure, I'll take this," and I went and ran with it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about leaving comfort zones, because that's so un-Asian, right?
That's right.
I mean, you were comfortable in dealing with something that was a no, yes or no and factual, and now you're working in an arena where it's very gray, and you have to deal with compliance issues. What was it like to dabble in this kind of area? Did they provide you support?
Yes, I had a lot of support along the way. I had a lot of encouragement and support from mentors like people like you.
I know,
Thank
they
you.
assigned me to mentor you.
Yes. Yes, in the IT field, definitely we're more on the back end, and I was more comfortable there. However, I always liked working with people and liked helping people with their resolving their problems. So this job, the current job, gave me more opportunities to be able to work with vendors, business communities, especially the local small and minority business communities, and help them to understand county's programs that can help them and benefit from county's tax dollars that we want to invest back into local economy.
So for the shy, reserved Asian American who's watching this show, how does one muster up that courage to just kind of, move in this direction?
It took me a little bit to consider, because with this job, it does require me to go into an audience with 100 people or so and teach them, give them training to understand our programs. I have to say, if this was 5 years ago, you asked me to come to your TV show, I would say, maybe not, thank you. But I gladly accept it, because I think this will really help my job and reach out to more Asian community to come and get some procurement opportunities with the county.
Now, I've seen you blossom also.
Oh, thank you.
Very quiet in the beginning, but you're now out there doing presentations. That's wonderful. What are the responsibilities that you have in your position with the county? And talk a little bit about the challenges that you have.
Yeah, okay. So our office manages the county's socioeconomic programs within the procurement arena.
Okay.
That includes the local small business reserve program, the minority female disabled persons owned program, and we also monitor and tracking all the wage requirements law and the prevailing wage law that's associated with contract compliance.
So in terms of tracking and, to what degree are you involved with enforcement of rules and laws?
Yeah, we actually do all the enforcement and the tracking for these contracting compliance programs.
How big is your staff?
I have 4 staff right now.
Okay.
Yes. It is a challenge, but we have been working and using a lot of, actually this is where the IT background that I had come in place, helped me a lot in terms of using the IT resources to complement my lacking of the staff resources.
What are some of the challenges of what you do?
From where I have dealt with vendor communities, I have noticed that especially in the Asian vendor communities, a lot of people don't really try to look into the county or public entities procurement opportunities. Actually, in this area especially, there's federal, state, and local government procurement opportunities. I think one of the reasons is the language barrier.
Yeah, well, we come from a culture where people are very private, and there's a big reluctance to fill out forms.
Right.
There's a reluctance to put down what your salary is. I mean, there's all of that, and I would imagine that makes it very difficult, right?
Yeah, especially Montgomery County, we are in the leading edge on these socioeconomic programs, but at the same time, it does make our procurement process a pretty complicated one, and it does have a lot of attachments in our solicitation package. So when vendor look at this package, will say, wow, that's a lot of forms to fill out, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not going to participate.
Right, so they just assume not even go for the money.
Right.
Or any of that
right.
assistance. Well, what are you doing about it?
Yeah, so our office not only do the monitoring tracking for the compliance, we also have a component for vendor for business relations where we do outreach. We conduct meet and greet events, and we do
Do
training
you go
and
into
workshops.
the communities for the meet and greet events?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We go to different Chamber of Commerce's events, and actually this Thursday there's going to be a power conference for women, and we're going to be there presenting our programs.
Okay.
So we're trying to reach out as much as we can to especially minority vendor communities.
So in terms of minority communities, do you identify like key strategic locations where minorities congregate and maybe outreach that way?
Yeah, actually, Montgomery County, we have a very diverse population, and that reflects in our vendor community also. And we have a couple pots where people live together. For example, Silver Spring and Wheaton area, it's very diverse. So a lot of our outreach events, we try to do it over there at the Civic Building.
I see. Okay. For example, I know for Asian Americans, a lot of our community, a lot of activities evolve around food. So,
Yes.
Restaurants,
We love food, yes.
we love food.
Right.
Restaurants, supermarkets. Do you try to reach out in that way to maybe, get closer to the community?
There's Silver Spring Day, there's Wheaton Day, Taste of Wheaton, that type of thing. We try to have a booth, and we try to reach out as much as people, as many people as we can.
So there's a lot of work beyond the 9 to 5 day, huh?
Oh, yes.
Right,
yeah.
right. Okay. What is the LSBRP? Tell us about that program. And
Okay.
is it successful here in Montgomery County?
Yes, that program is
What does it stand for?
Yeah, it's for Local Small Business Reserve Program.
Okay.
And it's actually a homegrown program by Montgomery County.
This doesn't exist in other jurisdictions?
Now they're more and more, and they're actually coming to us and learn from our law and went back home and built their own law based on ours. This is a program that will reserve certain dollars for procurement dollars from each department. 20% actually from the eligible spending has to be reserved for only local small businesses. This
Okay.
means only the small businesses that's located within Montgomery County can bid on these solicitations.
Now, what constitutes small?
Yeah, there are 5 different categories, depends on which purchasing category you are in.
Oh, I see.
For example, if you are in construction, then your annual revenue need to be lower than 14 million.
Oh.
and you need to have less than 50 employees.
Okay.
That will make you small.
Okay,
enough.
so what if you're not in construction and you're in some other field? It would be less, right?
Yeah, for services, it's also 50 employees. For some fields, the employee size are smaller.
Okay.
So we have a list of what the standards are.
Now, is that program successful here in Montgomery County?
Yes,
Are we
we-
reaching are there goals?
Yes, the goal is 20%, and in the last 3 years, we have been exceeding that goal. Last year, we did 24.7%.
Oh, wonderful. And people, if they want to participate, would then register
Yes.
and indicate that they are one of these categories.
Yes. So yeah, they need to register with us with our central vendor registration system, and then in there, please register that you are local small business or you are minority-owned businesses, so that we know that you are out there.
I see. I want to go back a little bit to, we were talking about the outreach strategies to reach out to communities, and since my show is focusing on Asian Americans, do you have people who speak the language? Because language is one of our big issues.
Yes, actually in the Office of Procurement, we try to keep a diverse workforce so that when we deal with vendors, we will be able to communicate with them. We have people in our office, for myself, speaks Mandarin. There are people speak Spanish. So we're trying to be able to cover the languages.
Right.
If we don't have somebody speaks the specific language, the county has contractors that we can hire to help us out.
Well, that sounds great. We're coming to the end of our program, so just one quick thing. You are part of a biracial family, right?
That's right, yes.
So you have 2 kids?
Yes. Yeah, both my kids speak both languages. I try to make sure that they still understand and speak Chinese so that when we go home, they can enjoy their trip.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Grace, for joining me and for
You're
what you
welcome.
do on a daily basis.
Thanks
okay?
for inviting me.
That concludes our program for today. Thanks to Lasantha Dahanaike and Grace Denno for sharing their commitment to equality in the workplace with us. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Stay well, and we'll see you next time.